transformation through human-centric innovation. And our keynote speaker is Ms. Sushma Rajagopalan, Managing Director and CEO, ITC Infotech. Before I invite her onto the dais, a few words of introduction of Ms. Sushma Rajagopalan. Ms. Sushma Rajagopalan is the Managing Director and CEO of ITC Infotech. Ms. Sushma is also member of the NASSCOM Executive Council and Chairperson of the NASSCOM IT Services Council 2015-17. NASSCOM is the premier state body and the Chamber of Commerce of the IT-BPM industries in India. An industry stalwart, Ms. Sushma has over 30 years of global leadership experience in the information technology industry. She has led organizational transformation, headed strategy and corporate development, and has been responsible for several large deal acquisitions through planned strategic investments. With a transformational leadership style, Ms. Sushma leads from the front and helps team members realize their true potential by translating strategies into actions. A truly approachable leader, Ms. Sushma brings in tremendous clarity, passion, and confidence. Ms. Sushma has won numerous accolades, which includes Innovator in Technology in 2013, and Best Technology Woman Leader in 2011. She holds a BSc from Women's Christian College, Women's Christian College, MA in Personal Management from TIS, and an MBA from Carnegie Mellon University. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together loud enough while I invite Ms. Sushma Rajagopalan onto the dais. Ma'am.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the kind words. Very happy to be here. And I'll take maybe about 15-20 minutes. We are running a little behind, and I'll try to make up some time. I'll try to make it interactive towards the end. Couple of disclaimers. Pretty much most of the things that you would see here are original thoughts. Okay, so it could be right, it could be wrong, and it could evoke reactions in you. Feel free to react, all right? See, innovation is a topic of that kind. There isn't too many things that are very structured about innovation. Now, how do you make innovation? Human-centric innovation. Now, is there any other kind of innovation? Most of the things are driven by human beings, even if it is rendered by machines. It is engineered, it is thought of by human beings. So, I've taken some liberties in terms of the topic, and the whole idea here is to spur your creative juices, to have you think and think alongside with me, and I hope to learn from this as well. So without further ado, I'm not usually somebody who resorts to slides, but I was told that is something that is required. So I've kept it to as minimal number of slides as possible. So let me take a few minutes to sort of walk you through the 106-year-old organization that I am part of. I'm part of an $8 billion company, ITC, and I represent their fledgling division, ITC Infotech. If you look at an organization which has been around for 106 years, and one of the most admired companies in India, could you get there and can you sustain yourself if you do not have an innovative bone? Forget innovative bone, you have to have an innovative DNA in the organization. Innovation is not all about technology. There's innovation that's happening in almost every walk of your life. Yes, technology has been used as a very powerful tool to innovate, but the most powerful innovations are those that actually impact us on a day-to-day basis. Is Airbnb, all of you agree that Airbnb is an innovation? How many of you believe it's sustained innovation? How many of you believe it is disruptive innovation? What is the role of technology in Airbnb? Come on, be interactive. Say that again. It is an enabler. Is technology itself the key contributor to the innovation? No, not necessarily. It was something that was used to aid and abet it. So there is one very interesting story. While ITC is a pioneer in multiple areas, it's an organization that believes in triple bottom line. The concept of a triple bottom line is you seek business excellence, but you also seek social excellence in whatever that you do, right? How does an organization of this kind actually innovate? And I'm going to share one instance of it. Most of you are from India. Most of you also probably use a form of wheat flour that ITC produces. It's called Ashirvad, okay? How many of you all can even think that there could be innovation in something like wheat flour? How many different varieties of wheat do you think there are in India? I have had the opportunity to work very, very closely with the individual at ITC who actually came up with this whole concept. His name is Shiv Kumar. And if you really look at it, the way ITC thought about a product like wheat, which has been there for years. I mean, nobody had to invent. It was a crop that was grown in India for centuries. Now, how do you innovate in something like this? We came up with a way of blending. We came up with a way of blending different strains of wheat in order to please various different palates that are there in various parts of India. So sustained innovation, often than not, is something that stems from really understanding the root of the problem. Often than not, innovation starts without understanding the root of the problem. And which is why you will see many innovative attempts sort of die. So the story of Ashirvad has actually led me to postulate what kind of theory or framework drives innovation. Before I go into that, here's a little bit about who we are as ITC Infotech. We are an organization that is focused very, very clearly on 7 industry verticals, and in a rather crowded market, trying to figure out how do we innovatively position ourselves as an organization that caters to very specific industry verticals. And we have taken it upon ourselves to come up with identifying core problems in these industries. These industries are not new, and to apply technology to solving them. So innovation, and I call it innorruption, which is innovative disruption. So we don't have an innovation lab in ITC Infotech. We have something called an innorruption lab, okay? And we'll talk about it more as we go along during the course of my chat. The other thing that we said is innovation. What should it be characterized by in today's digital world? Okay? We said it needs to obviously disrupt the new normal. It needs to encapsulate digital, which is the new protagonist in the mix of our lives today. And it should be able to sort of draw intelligence, because we are also living in a world of proliferation of data. How do you derive meaning from data? Create that intelligence. So we said, if there is a concept that very cleverly stitches together the 3 concepts of how do you disrupt, how do you take digital, and how do you embed intelligence in that, we said, well, our innorruptions will be fueled by a concept of digitaligence at work. And I'll give you examples of these as we go along. This is the only theoretical slide that I would use. I said, what is the underpinning, or what is the kind of theory of innovation that I will hang my hat on? So I've looked at many different kinds of innovation. There's disruptive innovation. There is marginal incremental innovation. But what truly is the kind of innovation that we should all be sort of striving within an organizational context. Now, everything that I'm talking about is not at an individual level. I'm talking about it within an existing organization. How do you get people to adopt innovative methods in organizations which are 15, 20, 30 years old that have worked in a certain pattern? So that's the paradigm, okay? The paradigm is not how do I at an individual level, how do I spark innovation? That is not the core of the problem. The core of the problem is how do you spark innovation within the confines of an organization, right? And I felt that this particular, oh, it's on the side, okay, all right. I really wanted to know, what is the kind of theoretical framework in which we should operate? So on the left-hand side of the spectrum is how well is a problem defined and how well is the domain defined, okay? Often than not, most innovations start with basic research, okay, where neither the problem is defined very well, nor is the domain of how it will be applied understood very well, right? We get lucky sometimes, and you get very maverick thoughts. But even when you get maverick thoughts, what happens is one or two individuals will help define a problem very well. So you take the case of an Airbnb. What was the core of the problem that drove Airbnb to be formed today? What was the core problem? The ability to buy fractional rooms, to buy rooms which are there for a couple of hours, to find the cheapest, to find something that is as close to you as possible, okay? What is the problem that Uber solved? How do you transport yourself without necessarily using a car? How do you hail a cab within 2 minutes and it's there? We've all lived through the horror story where you book a cab, the cab doesn't come, you're waiting feverishly to get to the airport on time, and the guy will call you and say, sorry, I'm running late. So these were the kind of problems that we were all living with, and not just in India, mind you. It's world over. So the core problems that companies like Airbnb and Uber took were day-to-day problems. Define the problem extremely well. The idea was not to come up with another taxi service. The idea was to come up with a reliable taxi service that was there for you 24/7, which assured you the highest level of service. And one more very important thing, convert private assets, which already people owned by way of cars, so that you didn't have to invest in a very capital intensive. You didn't have to start buying a fleet of taxis. Of course, subsequently, they've done that as well. But the whole idea was to disrupt the taxi market, and which they did extremely successfully. And it started with understanding the problem very well. Now, is it breakthrough innovation or is it sustainable innovation? What will disrupt Uber tomorrow? Blockchain. Okay. How will blockchain? All right. I'm going to have to spend more time with you on that. But to me, blockchain cannot replace the physical act of you going from point A to point B, which will still be the core purpose of Uber. All right? So all of us need to start thinking, for the time being, I think Uber is still a sustainable innovation. All right? But here's possibly a chink in their armor. How will you globalize the concept of Uber? You can have can you potentially have the efficiency of information technology on a worldwide basis, or it's a very localized? You can replicate local models. Can you necessarily have one monolithic system that kind of operates in the world over? Could that potentially be one of the disruptors to Uber? I don't know the answer. I wish I did. I would be a multi-billionaire if I did. But so the key is to start thinking whether innovations that we see on a day-to-day basis, whether they fall into the maverick category, or do they really fall into the sustainable innovation category? Is blockchain sustainable, or is it more, since we talked about blockchain, is it breakthrough, or is it sustainable, or is it just still getting proven? Now, potentially, if people start using blockchain, this is one of my pet theories, that if we can start using blockchain for recruitment, it could potentially disrupt the monsters and all the other job boards in the world. That, to me, could be sustainable innovation. It could definitely be breakthrough innovation. It could be sustainable innovation. It could cut through. If we could already have people in the system who could say, well, he is indeed a blockchain expert, or he's indeed, or she is indeed an innovation expert. So this is pre-certified in a way. And all that you have to then do is to decide whether that individual is the right fit for you or not. Right? So it could disrupt. And this is incidentally one of the things that I'm working on to see how do you use a powerful technology. So often than not, technologies are powerful, but they become a lot more powerful if you can apply it to something very, very tangible and something that will be sustainable. So when you think innovation, don't think flash in the pans. Think about something that will completely alter the way in which you do business, not just in one sliver of time, but that will sustain itself. That's the kind of innovation I subscribe to, right? So there's no holy grail when you think about innovation, right? Innovation is not just for select few. There is a myth that people think you're born innovative. I don't think there's anything like that. You can train yourself to be innovative. You can absolutely train yourself to be innovative. There isn't anything called a perfect model of innovation. And I don't think there's anything which is a universal approach. But you certainly need to have the mindset to discover. You almost need to have an insatiable appetite to try and fail. You need to have the ability to engineer, to construct, to build upon, to transform, but transform in a sustainable manner. I have debunked the myth of a lone inventor. Innovation in the times to come is about forming partnerships. So one of the first things that I did when I became CEO of ITC Infotech, I said, listen, we have to have an innovation ecosystem. I'm a huge believer in having an ecosystem that actually feeds on the frenzy of young minds. So at ITC Infotech, we have an annual event, which is called iTech, where we actually bring students, we bring our customers, and we give them live problems to solve. And guess what? It's extremely powerful. In 36 hours, between 24 hours to 36 hours, the kind of solutions that are created to real problems in the world, it's just amazing. The energy, you know, and there are enough YouTube videos on this, and we think that we are onto something out here, that creating an ecosystem is an absolute must to provoke people to innovate. A platform, an ecosystem, eventually it's about the right kind of partners, the right kind of platform, and the right kind of, you know, not right kind of people. Every person should actually try this before they give up, right? If there is one thing that I've found is absolutely crucial to come up with winning innovations, it's need focusing. Do you think Airbnb and Uber came up with their innovation without complete clarity of the kind of need? Now I'm going to ask all of you, those of you who have internet access, can you go type square melons? Yes, melons are round. Okay, I'm asking you to go type square melons. And you will actually find pictures of square melons. This was an innovation in Japan. The problem was they were losing a hell of a lot of efficiency in stacking melons. Okay? And what was happening was these melons were getting damaged. Because when you put two round melons together, there's space in between. When you have space in between, the melons move, and you have smudge marks, and it becomes, hit marks around it. What happens? The quality of the fruit suffers. Consequently, it starts rotting earlier, and the shelf life of the melons were coming down. So they said, okay, I will start growing square melons. All right? Brilliant. So it was need focusing, and the need was, how do I transport melons very efficiently across? How do I optimize the space that I have? How do I minimize the damage to the melon, which is a highly perishable commodity? If you look around you, there are enough examples. How many of you all have seen this famous case study of MIT? It's actually a bottle with carbonated water, okay, as a light bulb to serve areas which are rich in sunlight but have no electricity, right? Need to be able to give electricity to people where they don't have means to electricity. So one of the key things, whether you're an IT company, whether you're a pharma, whether you're hospitality, it doesn't matter. If you want to bring in the element of innovation within your organization, just be very focused on need finding. Then you can channelize how to sort of get many people in the organization focused together to be able to find problems focused on one need. And often they're not something as basic as this, is something that we don't do. We pay lip service to innovation. Most organizations pay lip service to innovation. They'll create a monolithic group saying, this is my innovation group. I think that's a wrong buzzer should just hit there and say, well, you just don't only create an innovation group. Now, of course, you will create a group in order to lend it focus, but you need to use that to galvanize the rest of the organization. How do you galvanize the rest of the organization? Crowdsource to find real needs. And crowdsourcing is something now all of us are really familiar with. How do you come up with a set of 20 problems which are real hardcore problems that impact? Now, this is something that we can do in the age of digital and how digital impacts employees. We talk about customer experience. What about employee experience? Can we come up with 20 things to improve employee experience? It's a real problem, and we can come up with sustainable innovation rooted across specific identified problems. Then what you need to do is to sort of orchestrate interactions and experiences. Innovation is nothing, it's not a theoretical thing. Saying, look, I've got 40 people now, you're now just going to come up and create innovative solutions. You find needs, you define people, then you orchestrate interactions. How do you orchestrate interactions? You've got to be able to give problems, solve them, hackathons. You've got to find newer and newer methods to sort of arouse that curiosity in people. Allow them to experience what the outcome of some of these solutions will be. And then the culture should be about fail fast, rapid prototyping. See, innovation, there's a huge difference between innovation and R&D, right? Time-consuming, capital-consuming. You won't see the fruits of what you do for the next 15 years. At an organization, at a commercial organization level, what you really need to be doing is to be able to find simple problems that you can solve today differently. If you start with that, and you start with the second point, which is no harm in failing, but if you have to fail, fail fast. Fail fast does not mean you give up after you fail. Fail fast is about failing and then saying, okay, how do I pick myself up again and run with it? Right? So failing fast is not failing. Failing fast is to be able to say, well, I tried this didn't work. What else am I going to do? This is the concept that we have in our interruption lab. We've got 40 people. I wouldn't necessarily characterize them as the best of everything, but they have one thing that unifies them: the ability to think multiple different solutions for a given problem, applying the latest of technologies, whether it is blockchain, whether it's augmented reality, and failing fast. And then prototyping it. The key is not to come up with pretty solutions, but you need to have solutions that you can use to demonstrate and explain to people what you're thinking. This, to me, is one of the biggest things that I would advocate to any organization. Doesn't have to be an IT organization, but we have built a collaborative platform called Brainwave, where anybody can throw an idea, a business problem, and say, well, this problem has not been solved by anybody. This group of 40 takes that problem, but we also allow anyone in the organization to come and work in this group for 2 months at a time. Because we are a commercial organization which makes money out of people, I can't just have a whole host of them move to the interruption lab. But we do a systematic method by which we bring people from the rest of the organization into, and we call this the Ganga dip, okay? So we take people who will come and get immersed in an innovation program, and they go back. All of this is homegrown. And I'm sharing this with you not because these are the most innovative things. These are different things that we are trying. And I would encourage each and every one of you to try that. This is not the privilege of just IT companies, right? But ultimately, you need to provide a culture for sustained innovation. You need to use technology to gather as much of business problems as possible. You need to make sure that these business problems are actually live problems that affect people, that you can actually use any kind of technology to come up with solutions. Fail fast is the kind of culture that you need to behave and the behavior you need to have. You need to dedicate. While you should include everybody, you should be inclusive. Having a dedicated focus is absolutely important, and have dedicated infrastructure is also extremely important. Whoops, what did I do? Okay. So if you do this, you won't be just changing the way you operate, you'll be able to transform, right? And eventually, I just want to end by saying that most innovations are not technology innovations. Most of them are actually business innovations, right? Thank you. I hope I have piqued your curiosity, and happy to take any questions. Hopefully, I managed to save some time as well. So.
Thank you very much, ma'am. That was a very interesting session. And I would now like to request Mr. K.K. Mahapatra, Organizing Secretary and Associate Vice President, INFOCOM, and Chief IT Advisor, ABP Private Limited, to kindly come forward and present a memento to Ms. Sushma Rajagopalan. A big round of applause for ma'am for this very interesting session. Thank you very much, ma'am.